I'm Ben David, District Attorney for New Hanover and Pender County, and I'd like to welcome all the Seahawks listening to their new hometown of Wilmington. You know, this is a great opportunity that you've been given and earned the right to be in this incredible class, one of the very best we've ever had on this campus. But I want to talk to you today about the adult decisions that are sometimes being made that have real life consequences that sometimes show up into this court system that I help to run. We have over 50,000 traffic tickets, 20,000 misdemeanors, and 50,000 felonies that come across my desk every year. Now that can be everything from 2 overdose deaths a week in Wilmington and the greater New Hanover and Pender County area, to things like the 30 people or so that are going to lose their lives in traffic accidents, whether they're in a car or a pedestrian. We have 60 pending murder cases. We have a lot of issues with serious hardcore drugs, particularly heroin and fentanyl. And these things are in every community in America. We just have the courage to talk about them. And I want to remind you that there's no bubble around UNCW. You're part of a larger community now. So let's talk about how it is that we can avoid being in this building as either someone charged with an offense or someone who might be the victim of one. The first thing to remember is that you've learned right from wrong for years, and I'm not going to tell you how to act. You've already known how to do that. But what is important to remember is that actions have consequences. For instance, online, just as you have to protect your name and you're investing a lot in it to one day be a college graduate, you can really harm your reputation and your image if you put anything online that you wouldn't want not only the Dean of Students to see, but a future employer after you graduate to see, or a grad school that you might attend following UNCW. It's really important before you hit the send button or put anything online that you think about the consequences of putting that out for all to see. But in the real world, there's some things, particularly relating to drugs and driving and dating, what I call the 3Ds, that will bring you into this courthouse during this next 4 years. Let's start with driving. As I mentioned, there's over 50,000 traffic offenses that come across our desk every year here in New Hanover and Pender County. If you do get a ticket, just show up to court. Almost always it's going to be on a Friday morning that your ticket is set. The average wait time is about 10 minutes. We're going to do our best to keep it off your license and insurance by sending you to a driving school and making it a teachable moment. You're going to be able to represent yourself and handle it, but come to court if you get a ticket. Now, there are some driving offenses that are far more serious than not having your car registered or inspected or even a speeding offense, and I'm referring to impaired driving. That unfortunately takes the lives of about 30 people each year in this district, and many times it involves young people listening right now. A couple of golden rules to remember. First of all, it's not drunk driving, it's driving while impaired. That means any substance can impair you, whether that is alcohol, which is the most common substance people imbibe, but also marijuana or cocaine, heroin, prescription drugs, any of those things that can impair your ability to operate a vehicle is driving while impaired. And as for alcohol, there are a lot of people who think that it's 0.08 or above is when you're in trouble. Unless you're over 21 years of age, any amount of alcohol in your system is driving while impaired. Now, as a real life consequence, and we're going to have over 2,000 of those tickets this year here in Wilmington, the average DWI, when you throw in fines and court costs, attorney's fees, and the great increase to your insurance, the average DWI right here in your new hometown is going to cost about $10,000. So take an Uber, call a friend, be that designated driver, but don't take even one sip of alcohol and operate a vehicle, and don't take any of those other drugs either. Now, there's other drugs that are deadly even without a car. They can kill you just by being in your system. In America, we've lost over 100,000 people just last year to heroin and fentanyl overdoses. That's about 2 a week in this district. This is a real conversation I'm going to have with you now. Over 80% of all people who have started heroin actually started with pills, and 75% of them started with someone else's pills. So if you have a prescription drug that might be opioid based, that's lawfully prescribed to you, Don't share that with friends. Don't pass that out at the party. That's actually dealing drugs, and that's a serious felony. And by all means, do not take that, because that is the gateway drug to all the other hard substances that ends up taking the lives of the people in this community. That also brings me up to talk about another violent way that people die, and that is through gunfire and through armed home invasions, carjackings, armed robberies. Very frequently, that is around the drug trade, specifically marijuana. I know that many of you listening probably think that it should be legal, and that there are several states now that make it legal. North Carolina is not one of those states. And because of that, the only way that you might be able to get a hold of marijuana is to deal with people who are actually involved in illegal activity at the time. And they are very keen to commit crimes against the people that are buying those substances from them, because they think they're not likely to reach out for help if they get in trouble. If you ever get victimized, please reach out immediately. We're much more concerned with violent crime than people who are doing any type of illegal drugs. But I'll also say that many of the pending murder cases in my office, and we have over 60 at the moment, many of them involve weed deals. People who came there to get marijuana and ended up getting killed in the course of that. So just don't make that part of your college experience. Next, I want to say something about dating. I hope that part of your college experience is that you meet someone who takes your breath away. If, on the other hand, you're in a situation that turns violent, domestic violence it's frequently called, you need to reach out for help. And if you see other people that might be experiencing that, stand up and say something. Domestic violence is really all about power and control, and a lot of times people get socially isolated or stop calling their old friends or family, and they're in a relationship that's very toxic. We rely on people around them to maybe be that voice of reason, to call out for help. And there's wonderful resources on UNCW's campus for that. Now, specifically as it relates to sexual violence, UNCW has Title IX compliance, which means we are all over these type of cases. There are wonderful resources in place for people who might be victimized, but there are real life consequences for people who would violate the law. Rape is a crime of violence, and it's treated that way in the court system. Now, everyone has heard that no means no, but the inability to say no means no also. Stated another way, having sexual intercourse with someone who is passed out at the time from drugs or alcohol is rape under North Carolina law. And it's important that you remember that because a lot of people only say after the fact that they were just having fun, they didn't know, and now they're in a whole lot of trouble. If it's not yes, it's no. And whether that's specifically saying those words or being unable to because of gross impairment. 90% of all college assaults in America involve where the victim was impaired on alcohol, or the defendant was, or they both were. So if you want to take care of yourself and take care of your friends, don't drink to the point of excess or have other drugs that might impair your ability to fend for yourself in those moments. Now, keep in mind that many of you listening will be living on campus for your freshman year, but then go off campus at some point to live in the community. The rules aren't different for you than anyone else. In fact, you have farther to fall as a Seahawk, because you can not only be punished down here at this courthouse, but you might face real consequences at UNCW as part of the student conduct code. Be a good neighbor to the people who you live around. Don't throw the party that's going to bring in 200 people to it. There are serious consequences for being the social host. So if someone drives away and gets in an impaired driving accident that might kill somebody else, you could actually be sued civilly as part of what's called dram shop liability. So with great responsibility that you now have as an adult comes the need to really think about consequences before, not after an event occurs. Be that friend to someone who is going to, if they need you, have that ride. Be that friend who guards the door when your other friend is passed out, and not let that other friend come in. But by all means, be an adult, because when you're 18 years old, you're considered an adult for all purposes under North Carolina law. Just a couple of other things I want to mention before I stop talking to you. The first is that I believe in the power of young people to really be leaders. I was given the great opportunity by the voters in this district when I was 34 years old to run the district attorney's office. And that's a job I've done now for several years. As part of what I do, I have about 8 students every semester from UNCW working right alongside us in the DA's office on all the cases we just mentioned. If you ever want to have an internship to see it firsthand and see the justice system, we'd love to introduce you to justice in the very best way. I also teach a class at UNCW called Crime and Community in the Cape Fear. It's a 3-hour course. It's part of the Explorations Beyond the Classroom curriculum that everybody listening needs at least 3 hours of to graduate. So if you would like to fulfill that credit by being one of the 100 students each semester who takes it and has a peer-led experience as part of our discussion groups also, I would love to welcome you to that class. Look up PLS 250 or CRM 250 and join the class without any prerequisites. We're going to have a whole lot of you in there in the fall and spring, and I look forward to seeing you there. You know, the very best part about college is that this is a time in your life where you can grow, you're going to experiment, you're going to meet new people, you're going to make some mistakes. And I can certainly tell you now, looking back on my college experience, that I'm certainly not a perfect person. If you come down to this building that I'm in right now as either a defendant or as a victim, I promise you that I'm going to treat you like an adult. I'm going to fight for you if you've been harmed in any way as a victim, and I'm going to have to hold you accountable if you run afoul of the laws. For the vast majority of those things, it's a simple matter of a teachable moment to try and keep it off your record and get you out of here. But for some things, we just can't undo. I can't undo a case where you've killed your best friend in an impaired driving wreck. I can't undo the sexual violence that so many of you are going to experience. In those moments, I have to hold people accountable. And so what I would rather do is leave you in charge and be the leaders that you are right now by preventing crime, by building community. Thank you for your attention this evening, and best wishes over this next 4 years.